Let's talk briefly about problem solving. Certainly this is a huge topic, but the particular points I want to make from a system standpoint is that we view problem solving as a three-step process. Step one is, what is the problem? We need to have a good definition, and this is really where most of the work goes. If you can fully define the problem, you're more than halfway to the solution. This is also not to be done in isolation. You can never define a problem if you're using system dynamics without understanding and phrasing the definition of the problem in context of the organization's goals. So it doesn't do any good. There's no point even moving forward if you say that we have a broken pipe. That doesn't mean anything unless you say what that means in terms of the organization's goals and objectives and mission statement. That puts it in context so that we're not trying to take things in isolation and have them independent of everything else that's going on in this system. Step two is, why did it happen? This is very important, and it's not acceptable to say it broke. We'll get into that later in this video, but we need to understand from a root cause, from a cause and effect, drilling all the way down to understand what actually happened. And this is never going to be a person, or under only very rare circumstances, and you typically get to it by just going through a why. You keep asking why until you get down to what occurred. And this is not a brainstorming mission. This is not a what-if scenario. This is like a court trial. We are looking for evidence. All we care about is what actually occurred. If it could have occurred or might have occurred, or we're not sure if it occurred, it's irrelevant. It's not germane to step number two. We need to have only evidence that is demonstratable for this analysis to work correctly. It's also important to understand the separation of that time, space, and circumstances if there are cause and effect relationships that do have delays in them. The root cause is actually a plurality. It's not going to be a whole list of things. It's only one cause, but it very rarely would be just one thing. It's going to be a circumstance, something else happened, 4 or 5 different things combined made this event occur. But there would not be another scenario, for example, because that would be trying to come up with alternate scenarios just by brainstorming. That's not what this is about. You need to keep going all the way back. So, for example, there's a video also on this website. The Titanic, you could say that it's because it hit an iceberg or didn't have enough lifeboats, or they were going too fast. Well, it's none of those. It's all of those. All those factors had to be there, and there were quite a few more factors. If all those factors weren't there, if any one was missing, it wouldn't have sunk. So that's what's important to understand. And then step 3 is what should be done. And this would be the solutions part of it, because we're not doing problem solving just to find what the problem statement is or who's to blame. It's not what this is about. It's really all about solutions. In this case, we're looking at plural solutions. We have one root cause that has various factors in it, but we always look for as many solutions as possible, particularly ones that we would not have even considered had we not done step 2 in detail. And that way we can take that menu of solutions and find one that fits us the best and then move forward with that. So it's very rarely as simple as a part broke and we need to fix it and replace it. It's always more than that if we want to understand what's going on, and there are always options. There's always more than one solution, and it's important to get in the habit of looking at that array of solutions. That's the way the world works. That's the way nature works. Very rarely is something black or white. There's always a continuum. There's nothing has sharp edges. It's always a gradient of choices, and I think that's important to understand so that we don't lock ourselves into any one particular mindset. Okay, so this is the problem solving. These are the steps for investigation, and then we have some tools for investigation, and we also have 3 of those. The first one is the story, just on a timeline. This is what happened, bing, 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 bing. You just detail it out, play by play. Again, all evidence, all factual, nothing conjectured. If there's a doubt, it doesn't go in the story. Step 2 is to do evidence gathering. Basically like building a mini court case. You do diagrams, you do causal analysis, you take pictures of things, get drawings, whatever it takes to support that timeline, and have your evidence folder. And then step 3 is to look at the process that was used for whatever it is that you're analyzing. So there's always a process. If you're looking at a blown out tire, you may want to look at the process for how you, replace tires or how you rotate tires. Any of the processes that are involved around this evidence gathering become now part of this step 3 up here in terms of why it happened, but then what should be done about it, because that will be implemented in the process most likely. Is this about prevention, or is this about blame? Systems thinkers don't want to solve problems. They want to prevent problems. The firefighter, certainly that's their job to go put out fires, but it's also to prevent fires and to work with the community. And so in a sense that when we do have a problem, we have a post-mortem of something that has gone wrong. So our motivation is not to just assign blame or to come in here and just solve it, but it's really to come down to here and improve the process, work on the process so that in the future it will be prevented and we have a more robust system. That's what we really try to achieve. Okay, just a couple of more comments here on problem solving. There are 6 common errors that I think most organizations have when doing problem solving. The first one is having an initial focus on blame. And that's something you have to really work at, to stay focused on prevention, stay focused on the facts, not the people, and not on the blame. Number 2 is looking for one thing as a cause. It's never going to be a thing in isolation. Very rarely, if ever, will it be a thing or a person. It's going to be circumstances, and it's going to be something that has verbs to it that combined has the meaning of what caused the problem. But there's not going to be more than one. There can never be more than one if you've gotten all the way down to the root cause. The third common error is people consider the problem description the same as the analysis. So step 1, they'll just say that the pipe broke, and therefore, why did it break? Well, the pipe broke. And then they move to step 3 to find a solution. But that is not step 2. That is not the analysis. And it's important to make those 3 steps very intentional and not to move to the next step until you really do understand what happened and why it happened. Error number 4 is people tend to start with looking for the problem instead of stating the organizational goals and then making the problem statement. Number 5 is using buzzwords, possibility thinking, speculation, personality driven, trying to come up with a laundry list of things instead of evidence. We're gathering evidence. We're not coming up with evidence in our heads. We're actually going out and we're getting out of the conference room and we're going to go pick up pieces of paper. We're going to take pictures. We're going to measure things. So we're looking for what actually happened. And this is a root cause analysis. As soon as we have any kind of buzzwords or any kind of possibility thinking or alternates or contributing factors, all these kinds of things, you know you're on the wrong path, because that's not evidence gathering. That's just a smear campaign of putting everything on a piece of paper. So just because system thinking is a very holistic and comprehensive view doesn't mean necessarily that there's a lot of bulk here. So we're not trying to bring in every possibility. That is not the goal of system thinking. It's to bring in what's truly relevant. And number 6, we cherry pick the tools based on the circumstances. So we don't follow the same process, and that's really short-sighted. You need to go through the steps each time, apply the same tools and the same steps to every problem-solving event. Okay, and then lastly on problem solving, I touched just briefly here a little bit ago that this is root cause analysis, not root speculation or possibility or buzzword analysis. So it's backward looking, it's post-mortem. Root cause, it's past tense analysis. That's the purpose of this. Not to be confused with another technique, which isn't used quite as often and we're not going to get into, but that would be forward-looking, and that is called reliability-centered maintenance, I believe, yes. That would be the counter side to this, but it's not to be commingled ever. So you may have, let's say, a blown up pipe or something. You'd use root cause analysis to see what happened and what you're going to do about it. And now if you want to prevent that from happening again, you would do the same type of analysis, but a little bit different set of tools to forward think of what you can do to have better reliability on that problem. We're not going to get into that right now, but that is a separate analysis and then is validated as you move forward by doing root cause analysis next time you have a failure, which makes this become better and better each time that it gets corrected. It's very common to confuse the word blame with accountability, and these are very, very different concepts, and it's unfortunate that we don't spend more time clarifying what these words mean and really spend more time understanding how to do proper problem solving. And it's amazing how much time and energy goes into discussing a problem and a possible solution when the fundamental understanding of how to go about that is completely glossed over and never really learned. It only takes about an hour or two to learn some of this stuff. The videos are on this website from Think Reliability that go through some great case studies and go through a few tutorials that will give you pretty much all you need to know to do world-class problem solving from a system standpoint, and you'll have categorically better solutions moving forward once these techniques have been learned. So sometimes blame is confused with accountability, and accountability then results in some type of disciplinary action. Accountability actually means taking responsibility for actions and then instigating specific steps so that the problem is less likely to occur again. So it's really an opportunity to take action. And if you don't hold someone accountable, it's really a disservice to them because you're invalidating what they have done for the organization. If you believe that they are contributing and a valuable member of the team, to say that you're just not going to hold them accountable because you don't want to hurt feelings or it might look like it's blame or shame, that's a word problem. That's an organization problem if that's what's going on. And it's really a disservice to not hold someone accountable because most people have a great deal of pride in their work and they understand that things are series of approximation. You don't just have something that works or doesn't work, and this gives them the opportunity to improve and better their creation. If you don't do that, you're essentially blaming them in a passive way by saying it doesn't matter, we don't care, and we're just not going to let you do better. So that one always baffles me because the reason accountability is not done is because people think it's blaming or it's finger pointing, and really it's just the opposite but in a passive way. Personally, I'm highly offended when I'm not held accountable for something that I had responsibility. This is really a cultural problem. This is a organization problem if that's the interpretation where blame is equated with accountability, because a healthy organization would encourage people to think about how to prevent the problem from occurring again and would use this accountability cycle for fueling that. Now, a way to disarm some of the fear or some of the long-winded discussions is to not start with what's the problem. And that's how most organizations start a meeting. What's the problem? And that's really combative in a sense because it's implying finger pointing and has the emphasis on the first step and not the last step. So another way to do this is to start the investigation by focusing on the impact to the overall goals. And that would be starting with the organizational statement of what we're trying to achieve, and then look at how the problem impacted those goals so that you can quickly get into the analysis and the solutions. It's not only psychologically better to start with the organization goals and then discuss the problem, but it's going to be dramatically more efficient because if you open the discussion with what's the problem, the whole world is the stage at that point. But if you start with the organization goals, that is now the scope of the conversation. Anything outside of that context is irrelevant and should not be talked about. So you get right down to the point, and you start off with a positive note, and you stay focused.